Good morning, Bolivar. I'm Beth Appleby with Ebby Halliday, and I have the lovely privilege of being with Dan Priest with Priest Insurance.
Hey, everybody.
I know, we make a great team.
There you go.
And David's out, I don't know, checking out the waves and all the things happening on the beach. We don't know where David is. So we're doing this on our own. It's going to be fun.
We'll see how this goes. It's
I
gonna
know,
go yeah.
Too fun. So Dan, I brought you here this morning because first I wanted to thank you so much because I had some clients come down from Dallas looking at houses, and of course, what is their biggest fear?
It's insurance.
Insurance,
yeah.
insurance. So you were very helpful. You answered all of their questions and then some.
Well,
and
thank you.
You taught them along the way the different policies, because we need a few down here. We don't just get one. But you know what they told me? It's not as scary as they thought. They're like, wait, Beth, we were prepared to spend literally $30,000 on insurance a year. I'm like, where did you get that number? And they're like, no, it's not anywhere near that. I think you came in less than what they're paying on their house in Dallas.
Very
with
likely.
One insurance policy.
Right.
No wind, no flood, just a basic homeowner's insurance policy on their house.
Yep.
Their new beach house that they're going to live in year round is costing them less.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. You know, it's kind of funny because, you know, while you can get a house here that can cost a lot of money, there's things to look for that can really drive your cost down. To give you an example, we did a quote for a home in Houston yesterday.
Okay.
It was in the southwestern part of Houston.
So they do have flood there, or no?
No, they can buy flood there.
They can buy flood. It's
they
not
can
required. Because
yeah.
there are some areas.
Well, this is just homeowners.
This
is just homeowners
okay.
that includes wind. In the private market, so there's actuarial rates. There's a rate an insurance company has to charge to make a profit. And they figured that on this thing called probable maximum loss. That's a different discussion.
That's a whole different
discussion. So the southwest side of Houston, $400,000 house, that premium was $6,000, $6,500, okay?
Wait, because I know $400,000 houses down here that it's not.
No. So the house you're speaking of, $400,000 house, they're going to, the flood insurance on that policy is around $2,000 a year. The windstorm is around $1,500 a year. And the homeowners is around $700 or $800 a year.
Right.
So that policy right here on the coast, and if I'm not mistaken, that house was just yards from the beach.
Literally yards from the beach.
So the factors that influence that are elevation, how high the house is off the ground, that affects the flood policy, and when the home was built.
Right, and the homes that we were looking at were not new builds, and they were not as high off the ground as some of these, especially here in Bolivar. We have a lot of brand new construction or newer construction. The houses are really quite elevated.
So a key date for the windstorm is 2006.
Okay.
So there's a big discount for houses that were built post 2006. There's another discount farther back, and then for houses that were built in the 80s, there's no discount. So yes,
so
it's
you
just
have to look at all these.
You have to look at all of those things, and the bottom line here, because rates are either through FEMA and are subsidized, or there's private markets, or through a windstorm policy, which all the insurance companies pay into, and there's ways for them to pay. Those rates are actually below the actuarial rate that is in the private market.
That's amazing.
It is.
So it does make it affordable.
It does. Come on, let's go.
I know, let's go. I think the other thing is, so when I have a buyer call me, they've been on Zillow and Realtor and Homes and Trulia, all the sites. They've been on all the sites. I'd like them to use my site, but they're using all the sites. And I did this myself because I always once in a while pretend I'm the buyer. Well, I actually have been the buyer recently in a couple places. And so I act like a buyer, and I will go on and I will hit at the bottom, it says, calculate your mortgage. And then it has a little insurance calculator. You can't use that insurance calculator down here because it's a generic percentage of the price of your house.
Yes.
So that does not apply.
Yeah.
And I think that may be another misnomer, that people are on these websites and they're clicking this and they're getting this fake insurance number.
There's that, and then there's like on the house that we were talking about. So we can give someone a quote, but it's not necessarily going to be an accurate quote unless we have all the information. An example of that is flood. So we can give somebody a flood quote.
Right.
And so one of the houses we've done recently, it was a $400,000 or $500,000 house, and we gave them a flood quote, and that rate without an elevation certificate was $5,400 a year. When we obtained the elevation certificate, it went to $2,100 a year.
That's a huge difference.
Big difference. So yes.
So now all of a sudden the house went from being, I'm not sure I can afford this and it's scaring me, to
like,
oh, this is totally affordable.
Yeah, the discount paid for the other insurances.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now they're still at something that isn't so scary.
Right.
So really what we're saying is, one, we have to be knowledgeable. Two, we got to pick up the phone and call you while I like to do it before we actually are writing the offer on the house. It's like I have my clients call you or other insurance agents.
Yep.
And sometimes no offense, but I have them call.
That's okay.
I have them call a few because I wouldn't be doing my job if I only gave them one number.
No, that's
right. So I have them call a few people and I tell them, what are your top 3 houses? Which ones do you really think these are the ones? Let's have that insurance conversation before we decide this is the one we're going to write the offer on. Because once we make that offer, we have such a little time frame that we can get all of our ducks in a row and make this a solid, yes, we're pending and we're going to close. And if we have to throw in inspection reports and insurance quotes and trying to understand when and how policies in the midst of this little bit of time frame, it's very overwhelming. And that, I think you get a lot of cold feet and second guessing. So if we can take that factor out ahead of time, I think that really helps.
You know, it does. And one of the things that you do is you encourage someone, whether it's me or someone else, you encourage them to not just reach out to them by an email, but in a conversation.
Yes. So I put you in a group text. I hope I didn't set you up
no,
there. I'm like,
no.
Because I didn't ask you ahead of time. I work with other people that are very accustomed to my little group texts and group emails going, hey, here's this person I want to introduce you to, and we're working together and we're looking at these houses, and can you connect with them?
Yeah, so that's really, really good. And so one of the things, like we just talked about the elevation certificate,
right?
It's really good for us to be able to talk to somebody, just give me one conversation,
right?
And then
so from the listing agent side, it's really helpful if the listing agent has that elevation certificate available.
It is.
So if I go into the MLS and I book an appointment and I say, hey, we're going to tour this house, this house, this house. I go into the MLS and we have the availability to go to documents and see things. And so they have seller's disclosures, and sometimes they have surveys, and sometimes they have a neat little package that tells you how they'd like their offer structured. I'm not a fan of that one, but people put that in there. Elevation certificate
is a good thing.
Be a really good thing.
Yeah, so we can, here we know the area pretty well,
right?
And so we can kind of fudge a little bit,
right?
But it's never final until we have the EC,
right?
And people really need, at some point they're going to have that
absolutely
firm quote.
And if you're like me, when you're fudging it a little bit, you're doing these estimates, you're probably overdoing like I do. So, which is great in a way, because when the real numbers come in, they're so much better than what I gave them, and they're like, oh, this is fantastic. But sometimes it backfires because, like you said, when you're looking at the difference between 5,400 and 2,100, that is a huge deciding factor. And so if they're going with those numbers that are estimates and they're incorrect, that could really change a deal. It's very interesting. It's all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah.
But bottom line is knowledge. Knowledge is king.
Yep.
And so I'll keep sending my clients to you to
Beth.
become knowledgeable.
Anytime.
And I appreciate all you do for them.
And I appreciate it very much.
They really did feel so much better, and we're a lot calmer, and we were able to make an offer and get something executed. And so
Good.
It's going to be fun. They're going to be moving in soon.
Good.
All right. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you,
I
Beth.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to head out. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Beth Appleby with Ebby Halliday, and David will be back next week. See you soon.
Video equipment is sponsored by Crystal Beach Decor and More, located at 1959 Highway 87 in Crystal Beach, Texas, and Beachy Beatnik Boutique and Jewelry, located at 970 Surfside and Highway 87 in Crystal Beach, Texas. Thank you to these two businesses for being our 2025 video equipment sponsor for Bolivar Live.